Hi guys, thanks for showing up after the lunch break. I know it's always the toughest session. In Germany, we call it the Schnitzelkoma, so whenever you have had some food and you want to relax maybe, but then you come to a topic like that. Thanks for having us and thanks for joining. We are talking about rebooting the Republic. Maybe a quick question to start is why do we need a reboot? And I think maybe just to get a grasp of the audience, who of you works in open source professionally? Just a raise of hands. Cool. Anyone in the public administration or something related to that? Wow, a bigger crowd, that's nice. So all of us know that the Republic, and I think it's in general whenever or wherever it is, I'm not talking about the operating system number or model, I'm talking about the question whether we are state of the art or not. And I think, and that's my bold statement in that regard, is that we are running on an old operating system. It's always stable, nobody likes change, it's the system which we all grew up with, and it's becoming increasingly expensive. The way that we work is always we figure out there is a problem and we have a solution. In Germany, we have many problems and we have the tendency to have, not to look on whether there is a specific solution which already is being used, but we come up with this crazy idea that whenever there is a problem, we need to have a solution. Sometimes the solution is the problem, but not always, but this is the state of the art, so to say. In Germany, there were several studies or also questions within Parliament in regards to dependencies, and that's the numbers which are the latest ones, which have been always published. We have over 96% usage of Microsoft, either as an operating system or as a collaboration suite. We tend to have many databases on Oracle, and we have a lot of virtualization on VMware. And we always tend to have not only the 100%, but we need to be really, really sure that there is a solution which is being possible and being made. And we always tend to say that there is like this 80-20 rule, which is always sufficient whenever you have an executive meeting, but in reality, it's rarely being used or executed. And if you check, maybe we can, I don't know, it's no matter. This is the history of ZenDiS, so to say. We started as a study which has been conducted by the Ministry of Interior in Germany, where they figured out that there is actually a dependency. And then there was a really cool group of people, Kai being one of them, thanks for being here, who've been challenging, so to say, the entire ecosystem of federal and state levels to create something like a ZenDiS. So there was first, we had federal and state, which is also very rarely happening, being on the same level and on the same page in deciding that there is some dependency and we need to figure it out, how to solve it. They've created a strategy in which they laid out the framework in which ZenDiS and also a sovereign workspace and other products can be launched. They started funding this initiative, and then a year later already ZenDiS as a corporate has been founded by the state, and now last year we launched OpenDesk, and this year is going to be a great turnout as well. But more on that in a second. ZenDiS, for those who, like maybe a raise of hands, who doesn't know hasn't heard of ZenDiS yet. Cool. That's good. So maybe a few facts about ZenDiS. ZenDiS, as always, it's a German acronym for Zentrum für Digitale Souveränität. We always like to have a short version of a long sentence. Actually, they failed because we have two more words within the official title of the company, but it didn't fit into the acronym. We are a startup which is 100% owned by the public through the federal government. And what we do is we analyze dependencies, we figure out how they could be solved and execute in regards to creating solutions on that regard. What we do is we have a platform which is called Open Code. We had yesterday a really cool session on that in regards to secure development life cycles. We provide services and also we build products. Open Code, in case you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's also available in English language. What we do there is basically we have a place where, on the one hand, tech people can put on and publish their code whenever it's a public tender or so, which has set in motion the question on regards to creating code. But at the same time, what we do, and that's what we are enrolling even more and more, are on a gamified level, so to say, badges, but basically what you can see is there are different types of badges, and the one which is going to be, or the one that we've published the latest, is one in regards to security of or secure content within the software. And it's really cool to see, because whenever you come to a public institution, it's always a question of tenders, and we need to have certain boundaries in which we can make it easier, but at the same time to have some sort of quality gateway in regards to whether the software is applicable for the government, and that's a way to do it in a very easy way for public servants to understand whether it's an appropriate piece of software or not. The other product which we've been building is OpenDesk. Maybe a quick show of hands in that regard as well, so nobody falls asleep. Who has heard of OpenDesk? Cool. OpenDesk is our solution in regards to the everyday workspace. What we say and what we also live by is the question that where is OpenDesk in regards to the entire ecosystem of what we are using? We say it's the first step into a fully sovereign workspace in the public administration. What's inside? It's basically it's cut, but it's cool. What we have is basically all the tools which are being used on an everyday basis. So you have email, you have contacts, calendar, tasks, obviously. You have files. You have a knowledge base, which is based on a wiki. You have a notepad, which is a cool tool I'm going to talk about in a second. We have project management. Cool, now we see it there. We have project management, we have files, obviously. You can do video calls or chat, and there is obviously some sort of user management, which we also have implemented within the solution. Our definition of sovereignty doesn't stop at the software itself, but also in the way that it's provided. It's being provided, so there's also a glance on how it looks like. We do have our own software as a service solution, which we publish on a public cloud, and it's working quite easy and kind of cool. We've announced, for example, a few weeks ago that the German health departments, from federal to state to municipal, are using, for example, OpenDesk as a software, and we are going to announce a few other cool use cases in the next upcoming weeks. What else is working is, if it's not in the public cloud, and there are certain agencies in Germany which tend to operate outside of Germany more than inside of Germany, they need certain solutions as well. And they are running on a confidential cloud computing base. And we obviously have the ability to run it in an air-gapped or on an on-prem environment as well. So whenever there is certain the need to have your own data in your own basement, and then you can still have it set in motion, so to say, in that regard. I briefly spoke about nodes being a cool task. We have a strong belief that digital sovereignty doesn't end at the nation's borders. I think it's really important nowadays to have, whenever there are rivalries or conflicts, among states, to see that it's a European task. That's how we see it. We've created an initiative which started early last year with France, where both of the CIOs of Germany and France signed a coalition, so to say, in working together on a joint sovereign workspace. In December last year, the Dutch government joined. Peter, thanks for being here as well. It's a really cool way to see how different European countries with completely different political agendas in regards to sovereignty can actually work together. And it's really interesting to see that within our our joint, so to say, open source community, it's really not a typical standard whenever there is a government joining the ecosystem as well and creating something. And with Docs, that's the tool that you are seeing here on the right. We've been on Hacker News, I think, on #1 for a few weeks or so. And it's really cool to see that actually the type of development that governments can actually build is also something which is sustainable. There is a huge community now around this tool. You can go on Git and check it out. It's called Docs. Just I don't know, use your search engine and then you will find it. But maybe, and that's why we are thinking about the reboot of the government. The day after we launched OpenDesk, we had a meeting at the Ministry of Interior, which was super frustrating for me because I came in and we were like rock stars. We had a stage with, I think, 500 people or so the day before who were who were observing us launching OpenDesk. And then at the ministry, they did not notice that at all. They came in and they said, okay, you've published it, now you have to move on and do the other tasks that you have to do. And that's basically what we see here. We say that since OpenDesk is just the first step, we need to figure out how to move from a client within the browser to the client on the computer in total. We say that it's nothing that can work or can be done in one step, but we need to have some sort of modularity first within OpenDesk and having OpenDesk not only run in the browser, but also within the operating system. And then we can come into place with an OpenDesk sovereign government client. That's another German word. Which is cool. Machbarkeitsstudie. A Machbarkeitsstudie is basically a feasibility study. That's what we are conducting right now in regards to the operating system. We have 4 different pillars on which we try to build up the entire study, which René, who's going to be there also for questions or so, is leading right now. We have obviously the boring part, which is the economic and the legal aspects, but we also need to figure out a way how we can make it work. And that's what we are looking at right now. So basically the strategy on why we need a sovereign workspace, which is a political rather background, but also how it should look like are the topics which are the ones which we keep on working on day and sometimes nights. Basically, our goal is not only to show that it would be possible, but also how it would be possible. And we have a federal agency which is going to be a pilot, or which is a pilot now, who are committed to creating not only the environment so that we can conduct the study, but also who are going to implement it. And it's really interesting to see the learnings out of the day-to-day work then in a federal agency, and then from there on to see how we can make it spread out throughout the ecosystem. I think we always have obstacles, and there is obviously a reason why people are always unhappy when it comes to change. There are maybe 2 different target audiences in regards to who are unhappy of changes. The one first is obviously the entire industry, which have been running public like software, which is just for the public domain, basically Fachverfahren in German. Who are, I don't know, they've built up their infrastructure around the, I don't know, like .com momentum and haven't changed the user interfaces ever since. So they are obviously a big hurdle for us, but obviously also change. And it's really interesting to see that it's not always the question in regards to young versus old people within the public administration, but it's basically the intuition and the way that we grew up. And we have an entire, obviously, an entire generation who were always happily catered by big tech. And now we need to figure out how to explain that basically if a button is not on the left but on the right, it's still the same button. In regards to the study, and now we are getting more and more technical, we figure out that there are basically 4 different pillars or layers of the entire software which we need to figure out. Obviously, the backend services, which are on the fundament, so to say, of everything that we do. The client itself, also a big question, and then there are 2 big aspects in regards to the communication and also the collaboration aspects. If we look at that, the top, so to say, that's what we do with OpenDesk, and that's, so to say, for us a check, and we've done it. And the backend services, partially because we have things like a file management system, a user management system, but they are not sufficient enough just to run also an operating system and computers on a larger scale. And also the question in regards to what kind of client we want to use to run the entire party. More and more technical, as I said, but I promise from here on it's going to be easier. I think for us, and that's maybe I see many people are taking pictures. I can go away a little bit. This is the so to say the proof of concept of our proof of concept. We are checking, or we are. That's what we are testing. Basically, we look and see that the open source client itself is just one part of the entire question and the idea of how you want to run it. There are many also federal agencies where you have people sometimes, I don't know, like a third or so of the entire agency already using Linux as their computers, as their ecosystem. Some agencies had it and then changed. You know who I'm talking about. But it's not only a question in regards to being okay with or allowing Linux as a computer, but also being able to manage it in a larger distribution. And that's what we saw also has been missing for a long time within the public domain. So you have basically everything running or open source client being somewhere within a client management system. What we see also, and that's where we have like the entire ZenDiS package that you can get, is that we need to be able to deploy these things from a secure source and being able to provide also some sort of documentation in regards to the packages and the images, how they have been created, where they've been built and how they've been deployed. So you have open code also as a registry somewhere. And then you also have the backend services obviously also running there. Now the big question, and that's what we are thinking about, and also what we've been interviewing people on in the past few months, is there going to be some sort of a big change? Is it going to be a ministry which will say we are canceling all the subscriptions and are going to move to a just open source based solution? And I think, and that's what we also get as a response also from other states where they've been implementing some sort of an open source first rule, is that you can't just throw everything out and build something or start with something new. But you have to have a certain critical mass. I think it's really interesting in regards to, for example, projects which have been already conducted in, for example, Munich or other states, which sometimes succeed, sometimes fail. It's really important to have some sort of a community. And it's a community which needs to be done, and which that's at least my take on that, should be larger than just Germany or the federal state in Germany. You can see it whenever you have a sufficient open source project, which needs to have some sort of, like it needs to survive maybe an election or something like that. You need to have different types of sponsors and a different type of community. And in that regard, it's really important that once we decide on how the system is going to look like, we need to have not a solution which is tailored 100% just to the requirements and the demands that we have. We need to, like the 80-20 rule is super important right now, because if we will have some sort of operating system which is just being built for the federal government or something like that, it might also be some sort of proprietary solution. There is no need to have it in an open source community. In an open source community, you need to have some sort of a solution which caters your needs, but there is a possibility to have also room for others to join, and that's why we also see the entire European initiative that we've been part of right now, also some sort of a really important use case and some sort of a best practice for us in regards to how we can evolve. Also, sometimes, for example, there is a German state which in which the entire financial and like all the taxpayer agencies and stuff like that are running on Linux, and they have one computer which at the end runs some sort of Excel spreadsheet from, I don't know, like Windows 95 or so, which can't be touched because otherwise nobody would get health care or something like that benefits. But the entire there is, and that's what I mean in regards to the Big Bang, which is maybe not needed, but there is always going to be something which is not always 100%. I know it's sometimes difficult to hear, but it's important. The other one is, and that's what I've been trying to start in regards to the ecosystem. I think it's really important to figure out what kind of roles who has. I think that the public administration does not need to be the sole creator or caterer in regards to this open source ecosystem. We see that also with the project that we are doing with the Dutch and the French governments. We have a huge community of people outside of the public administration who are building it, using it for their own advantages at the same time, but also catering and helping us create a better product. What I see companies or organizations, agencies, offices like OSPOS or something like that as ZenDiS, I see all of us some sort of as a steward, maybe a governor, but also an enabler. We try to combine the ecosystem and also the public administration and to create some sort of transaction between both of them. For us, since we are a part of the public administration, but maybe we aren't the public servants as you would ideally imagine them. But the public administration itself should be a driver. I think it's really important. Nowadays, there are many people who always have. Is there maybe last show of hands? Is there any consultant in this room? Okay. Sometimes public administration needs to have their own opinion and not the opinion which a consultant tells them. But it's important that consultants tell them that they should have an opinion. But I think that sorry, been there as well, done that. But I think it's really important in that regard. And then if you have a driver, if you have organizations who are enablers, and go check out, I think in all major and also in small countries in Europe, you always have some sort of either a contact person or an entire organization which runs that. Then you can be a partner in the ecosystem and also benefit from it. It's never the question whether open source is something that the public administration wants to use free of charge or something like that, but we need to have some sort of control and to be able with the demands in regards to subscriptions, which are being higher and higher in proprietary solutions, to explain where we are going to spend our money. Maybe before I conduct maybe some cool projects which you either heard or haven't heard of, and you should go check it out. Obviously, there is our partners in France who are running La Suite. It's basically something like OpenDesk, but with a French touch, and it's also being built by basically some sort of public agency which is running behind or after a ministry in France. There is also a cool initiative which has been started in Netherlands, which they are also short. That's good. Which is really cool. In basically, if you translate it, it's the initiative is called to work better together. It's, I think, a really cool way to explain that if you have an open source solution, you can work better together. And that's the when they joined us within this triangle now with France. It was really interesting for us to see because with the colleagues from the Netherlands, we see whether open source solutions like OpenDesk and also La Suite are actually as open source and as interoperable as we always promise it to be. It's really cool to see that the colleagues from the Netherlands actually prove. At the first beginning, when I heard the idea, I thought of some sort of a Frankenstein or something like that, when you have two suites, La Suite and OpenDesk, combined into one. But now we see actually that it's first of all, it's possible. Is it possible? It's possible. Peter is nodding. That's really cool. But also it's really important because I think we don't need to have 20 more solutions like OpenDesk or La Suite, but we need to figure out what our joint standards on architecture, for example, are. And from there on, you can name it whatever you want it, just put a new logo on it, but you don't have to do the groundwork that we are doing right now. And it's really cool to see that that's basically what the colleagues from the Netherlands are participating with us. There is a cool project which is called BOSS. In Switzerland, we tend to take Europe as a continent and not the European Union as an institution. What they are doing, and BOSS is, the B in BOSS is Büro Automation, so office automation, and then OSS as an open source. It's a POC that they are building basically also with some sort of client as well as OpenDesk, so it's kind of close to what we are also working on. There is not always just the government, but also sometimes just people from the general public who are willing to help the public administration. So there is a project which is called EU UOS. There are also, I think, 200 people or so in the community helping building some sort of a European operating system, which is kind of cool to see that people from different countries in Europe, from different backgrounds, whether it's corporate, public administration, or just private interests, are invested into building something like that. And to kill one of the questions, which could be asked in a second, don't ask what kind of Linux distribution we are going to take. I think that's the easiest, but at the same time, the most unimportant question. I think it's really important to ask and to figure out what kind of requirements there are to cater some sort of ecosystem which is beneficiary for the public administration, but also for all the partners who are out there. And I think that's the most important question in regards to choosing an operating system. It's not the distribution, it's the way how you want to conduct it. So on that regard, we are going to publish the study, I think, sometime before Christmas. It's going to be like a Christmas present, maybe. But if you have any questions, and then shoot, and thanks for the attention. I think the idea was, and that's what Bent did, is there is a mic so that everybody can hear you. Just come up and then we will figure it out.
Sure, no problem. First of all, thanks for your talk. It was really good to hear about it in a little bit more detail. So first question, you talked about community building, and communities are important for you. Why do you start new communities around existing, already solved problems like emails, file sharing, stuff like this? There are products in the open source world already existing, so why do we start again?
Yeah, maybe an important one on regards to the OpenDesk. We don't build any piece of software ourselves. It's all a bunch of European, or some of them are German, some of them are French, also British, open source providers or vendors which we are using. For example, we have our email, as you said, is based on Open Exchange, for example, which is a German open source provider. We have Collabora for text editing. We have tools like Nextcloud, for example, for files. We have Matrix, which is being run on our chat system, and all sorts of stuff like that. So we are not building a new one. We just try to collect them and build them with a higher standard in regards to, for example, or we are funding them in regards to accessibility, in regards to security and stuff like that. And basically all the investments that we do are always going into the upstream part of the project, so everybody is benefiting from that.
Hi, I have a technical question. So it's about the role of Nubus in the OpenDesk stack. So I've been working with some people who were curious about OpenDesk, especially though regarding interoperability and avoiding vendor lock-in. The issue though, like one thing is the issue is they can't use Keycloak, they have to use Authentic. And Nubus, as far as I understand, is like it's basically Authentic on steroids. And honestly, the way I understand OpenDesk is kind of that it's like Nubus with some cherries on top. And the problem is kind of what I'm hearing is, well, okay, like we want to avoid vendor lock-in, but now we're just locked into Nubus. It's this like random German company we don't know, and it doesn't really do what we want it to do. So how are you going to address that?
I start, and then if there is still a question, René will fill in. So, is it authentic on steroids?
Keycloak on steroids.
It's Keycloak, exactly. So it's more Keycloak. It's Keycloak on steroids, yeah. We needed some sort of authentication method within, like we are combining, I think, 8 other providers into one system, so we needed one. We've created 2 things, and that's what we are working on right now. First of all, you can, if you have some sort of user identity management system, you can attach it to it. That's really important. Either open source or also, I don't know, like some sort of old Active Directory, which is being used in public administration. So you can do that. And also, what the colleagues from the Netherlands are actually right now proving is that you can de-integrate Nubus and use your own infrastructure for that. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to look into that.
Cool.
Hi, my name is Andreas Tiller. I'm the current Debian project leader, and I'm working in the Robert Koch Institute in Germany, and I confirm we are using OpenDesk. So nice. But you told me I should not ask for this distribution, and I ask it other way around. What can Debian do that you consider Debian as a distribution?
I would say go check out EU OS, and then you will have an answer on that.
Okay.
It's run on Debian.
Hey. So you talked about Matrix as a chat protocol for the German government, and I wanted to ask if you collaborate with France, for example, because they started or already have one, and also the German healthcare sector uses the Matrix protocol. So do you have collaboration? Do you implementing a new server, or yeah, do you have plans for that?
Yeah, Border Gateway is, I think, one of the features which we are funding from the French, maybe also from the Dutch, or it's going to come up, I don't know, but from the French and from the German side. So we are working on CHAP. That's the French version, so to say, of the Matrix client. Matrix is super widespread within the German administration. You have the Bundesmessenger, which is being built by the IT of the armed forces for municipalities and states. The federal armed forces have also Matrix running. We have, I think, a very strong community of supporters of that kind of protocol. Sometimes they lack in communication among each other, but we are working on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we are actually one of the companies that's providing Nextcloud and other solutions, open source solutions mainly, to different states and governments, or Bund already. And what we've seen is that it's sometimes really hard to put all those requirements, like every state feels a little bit special, under one hood or something like that. For example, for one state, we have used Nextcloud, but we heavily needed to change it because they had very specific requirements that they really wanted to have implemented into Nextcloud. How do you put all those requirements together? Right now, you have 16 states. In the future, you might have France, the Netherlands, and other parts of the world in there as well. How do you combine all those requirements?
Yeah, so I hope that France keeps being autonomous in regards to Germany. No idea of taking over. That's basically why ZenDiS was being founded, because people said that there should be one voice in regards to the public requirements. That's what we are doing. The team on our side, the project and the product people are. It's a hack of a task. We initially started, or we thought of the idea of having OpenDesk as a software as a service, where we would say everybody is going to get the same thing. Forget it. There is always some sort of, and we had that also within within this idea here, to have some sort of base image and then also have mini, I don't know, like mini ideas of how it should look like for a state, for municipality B, for maybe an institute or whatever. And I think that's where open source software should come in handy. First of all, we can cater all the different requirements and try to create a joint funding so that, for example, if two states want to have a feature, they don't have to pay 100% to the vendor, which they would usually do, since we all know how business models are being run. But they could pay maybe less, but get maybe not 100% accurate tool which they need, but maybe a 95%. And at some point, we will have to be happy with that as well. And it's really difficult. It's really difficult to understand, also to translate the needs, because people are always, I don't know, like they are articulating a certain problem, users, not the general issue that there is. And you have to be really careful that you don't build a solution which is being open sourced, but at the same time just catered for one specific client.
Yeah, cool. So it's more like a library that you're trying to provide and trying to put everything together.
I think that, and also some sort of, we are adding governance to the products. I think that's something that's sometimes missing also whenever there is open source providers going to public institutions. It's I don't know, like there are either faced with people who have a list of hundreds of requirements which are not necessary, or software which is not being built to be ready or fit for the public administration. And that's what we are trying to do also in regards to the very first question. It's super important to us that we don't only not only fund the projects which are being built within OpenDesk, but we I don't know, like you mentioned Nextcloud, for example. Nextcloud is being used outside of OpenDesk far more often than you have it within OpenDesk. But in regards to the public administration, we helped, for example, in regards to accessibility, we funded massive parts of that, and that's how you can benefit from it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Multiple questions. The first is directly touching upon what you mentioned right now, is the point of sometimes there is software, open source software, which mostly fits the bill, and then somebody has to add some more features, which is already doing. But I think one of the challenges also in a, for example, government environment is who is going to give me support for this piece of software. I found it somewhere on whatever, GitHub, and I can only procure software which has an active support model. Regardless of who is giving me support, I just need somebody to have the contract. So are you providing that as well as a single point of contact for, okay, all those components, the support goes for you?
No. No, but what we can help is maybe shape also the kind of tenders that you have. So for example, if you want to have a certain library or something like that, we can help in regards to the tender to get a clarification that you can actually use that kind of software easily. Maybe there is sometimes also just one piece of software which you can use, and that's being, or wonder, published on open code or something like that. So there are ways of doing that. Us as ZenDiS, we are not going to be the sole provider in regards to services for open source solutions. The open source market is far too huge, and we don't tend to be like some sort of a vendor lock-in at the end in regards to who wants to use and who wants to cater services in regards to the public administration. I think it wouldn't be the right task. We should create the ecosystem and we should put in place certain policies, but that's where it ends.
But the users getting the OpenDesk as AAS will get support,
yes,
right?
Obviously. Yeah. Also, the ones who are getting it on-prem or something like that, they all get support.
Okay, great. The other one is, well, this OS client is awesome, but the Windows 10 end of support is coming very, very, very soon. And I think this might not be ready when Windows 10 support ends, but it would be a nice client to switch to, right?
It would be a nice client to switch to, since you are also from the the fair gentleman is also from the German, from one of the German agencies on a federal level, which we are working with. That's why Bundesclient has been updated to Windows 11, because they felt that the end of support of 10 is far too close. But we are going to have the product, I think, by the end of year in regards to what we are going to do. And then we are providing the first pilot by end of next year as a, like, I don't know, like 70% or so penetration within the agency that we chose.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm working for Bundesamt für Strahlenschutz, so emergency services. And we are always interested in open hardware. I have already talked to one of your people, and maybe you can talk about a bit open hardware. What is the idea for your future? Maybe also open hardware?
We started with open source software. Then we are going, I guess it's going to be not immediately hardware, but maybe we will switch to networks as a next topic, and then hardware at some point as well.
Okay. And because it's one of my points, what is about training about how to use open source software? This is something I encounter always with bureaucracy, that nobody has a real idea what this means. Everybody is afraid. It's something different, and we don't do it.
Yeah, what we are going to do, that's going to be one of the announcements in autumn of this year, is there's going to be a partnership program in which we will have also courses in regards to how to use our software and why to have actually digital sovereign solutions within your agencies. It's going to be something that is going to be there. I don't see any more questions. That's really cool. We are on time. If you have a question and you just don't want to raise it here, René and I are here. Happy to talk to you guys. Thanks for participating in this talk. Thanks.